Okay, for our last lesson in Unit 2, we are going to talk about compound inequalities and graph the solutions. A compound inequality involves two inequality statements and solution sets. And there are a couple of situations where this would be possible. For example, if you had to buy a ticket to go somewhere and there were discounted tickets for children and senior citizens, you would say that there's a certain price for people who are less than 12 or greater than 65. But if you also wanted to tell me like a range of costs for certain items at the store, like certain t-shirts, for example, you could tell me that they are greater than 10 and less than 20. And those are the two situations. So with the ors, you're actually always going to see the word or there in between the two inequalities. So you solve each one separately, and then your answers are going to be blank or blank. And typically your numbers are graphed so that you shade on the outsides of the number line. And inequalities don't usually say the word and. They look like this. They look like two inequalities smashed together. So what we do is we split them into two inequalities and solve each of them, and then you solve typically shade in between. Now there are cases where that doesn't work, but we're not really going to throw those at you this year. So first one, this is an and inequality. There are two parts to it. The first one is highlighted in yellow, so I'm going to rewrite that. It is -5 is less than or equal to -4 plus n. The second part I'm going to shade with, I'll use blue. The blue highlighter, notice that middle part stays the exact same. Okay, so I have -4 plus n in both problems. Once we do this, the steps for solving are identical to what we've been doing in the last few sections. So we're going to draw our lines through the inequality signs and we're going to solve. So to get the n alone, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And since I'm not multiplying or dividing, I don't have to worry about flipping my sign. So I'm left with -1 is less than or equal to n. We actually follow the same steps here for the second one since the middle part was the same. So add 4 to both sides and we're left with n is less than 10. Now you could leave this with the word and in between, and that shows me 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we don't have enough numbers here. We're going to go by 2s. We're going to do -2, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, just so it fits. But when you graph these both, so I should say that this first one has a closed dot at -1, which is in between here. And the second one has an open dot at 10. So I'm going to go ahead and draw an open dot at 10. What this means with the n is actually that our n falls between -1 and 10. And we can push it all back together into one inequality just like that. Or you can write the word and in between, but you do need to have at least one of those there. So you either have to have the and or you have to push it back together. And then with the and, we shade in between those 2 points. Okay, so it's between -1 and 10. The second type is when we have this or here, and you'll notice that it's already split into 2 different inequalities that I need to solve. So for the first one, I have p divided by 8 is greater than 1. So to cancel a dividing by 8, we're going to multiply by 8 on both sides. And we are also multiplying by +8, so that's not going to change our inequality sign at all. For the second one, to get p alone, we're going to add 3 to both sides. So those cancel. And because we're adding, we don't have to worry about flipping our sign. So our two solutions are that p is greater than 8, or, because we had the word or in between, can't speak, p is less than or equal to 1. So if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 0, p is greater than 8 is right here. Okay, and we shade to the right, because remember that helps us see which way to shade. And P is less than or equal to 1, we're going to have a closed dot here, and that one's telling me I'm shading to the left. So notice the ors you kind of shade away from each other, and the ands you shade in between each other. Let's do another one. 4n minus 10 is less than or equal to negative 3 plus 3n. And then negative 3 plus 3n is less than or equal to 4n minus 6. So remember, when we split this up, this part has to stay the exact same in both of those inequalities. So be really careful with that. Now I'm going to draw my line through my inequality sign. And I'm going to put my letters for both of these on the left side just because it's a little bit easier to read. My numbers on the right side. So I need to move my letters. So we're going to subtract 3n from both sides. So 4n minus 3n is 1n, or just n. And since we subtracted, we're going to keep the sign the same, so less than or equal to. And then bring down our other two numbers. And now to get rid of that minus 10, I'm going to add 10 to both sides so that it cancels, and I get n is less than or equal to 7. For the second one, we're bringing our letters to the left side, so I'm going to subtract 4n from both sides. And we are going to get negative 3 minus 1n is less than or equal to negative 6. We have to add 3 to both sides. So since we're adding and subtracting, we don't have to worry about flipping our sign at all yet. So negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. This time we're dividing by negative 1 in our final step. So if I divide by a negative number, I do need to flip my sign. So one really easy way to figure out how to write this is to actually put your smallest number first and your biggest number last, and put your variable in the middle. And notice my n is less than or equal to 7. I'm just writing that right here. This one, I actually have to flip around because they're in a different order. Okay, so this sign and this sign should always be going that same direction. So we're going to use a closed dot for both of those. They both have the equal to. And then because this is an and, we should be shading in between. Okay, if writing it like that is confusing, remember that you can always go back and put the word and in between your solutions here. It's just showing it's between the two. Let's do one more or. So these are nice because they're already split into two inequalities. So we're going to go ahead and draw our line here. I should give myself a little bit more room. I'm going to need the room. So for the first one, we need to get the m alone. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. I apologize that that doesn't quite line up. So I'm left with 3m is greater than, because we just added, 21. And then we're dividing by 3 on both sides, but it is positive, so we don't need to flip our sign. So we have m is greater than or equal to 7. For the next one, we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. So we get negative 9m is greater than or equal to 27. And then we're going to divide by negative 9 on both sides. And since that is a negative there, we do need to flip our sign over. So 3, let's see, we're going to do negative 3, negative 5. Hang on, wrong way. Negative 3, negative 1, 1, 5, 7. Okay, closed out at 7, and that's a greater than or equal to sign, so we're going to shade that way. And closed out at negative 3, and again a less than or equal to sign, so we shade that way. This is an or. It started as an or, so we're just going to bring that down. Remember, for the ors, we shade opposite directions. That's it for this unit. Let us know if you have any questions. Have a great day.